And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Monday morning showing marginal VFR pushing northeastward and toward the central interior. To the north and east, VFR, IFR, eastern north slope and the Arctic coast areas. And big area of IFR here from Bristol Bay on out over much of the Bering Sea and then down to near Atka and that extending westward in the Aleutians. Marginal VFR for the eastern Aleutians. Kodiak Island, mostly marginal. And IFR in the Gulf of Alaska here with areas of marginal VFR along the southeast coast. For the afternoon, marginal VFR spreading up into the central interior all the way up toward Fort Yukon, down toward Eagle there, Copper River Basin, maybe improving a little bit here over southern Cook Inlet and the western Kenai Peninsula to VFR. Marginal Kodiak Island, marginal out into the eastern Bering Sea here. Still looking at some IFR right along the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And we've got IFR out here, Pribilof Islands, Tadak and Atka, westward to Shimei and Attu. Stays marginal for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula area. And then that area of IFR pushes right up across Nunivak Island and along the Yukon Delta coast for Tuesday morning. It's also spreading up to St. Lawrence Island, just north of the Fox Islands. Otherwise, the remainder of the Aleutians IFR. Some of this IFR sliding along the north shore of the Alaska Peninsula out here with marginal conditions into Bristol Bay. And for the central north slope and Arctic coast eastward, IFR. A little bit of VFR here right along and just south of the Brooks Range and back into marginal VFR over the east side of the state. Looks like here for the lower to mid Yukon River Valley areas, VFR down across the Kuskokwim Valley into about Dillingham, Kodiak Island, VFR, narrow band of IFR along the southeast coast up to Yakutat and westward here into Prince William Sound. And then for the Tuesday afternoon time, IFR along the North Gulf Coast once again. Otherwise, marginal VFR kind of up and around south central Alaska here or the Susitna Valley Cook Inlet area with marginal VFR for the Copper River Basin. Marginal for the Panhandle, no change for the Arctic coast. And a lot of IFR covering the Bering Sea from the strait up here right on down to the central and western Aleutians. Passes Anatuvik and Atigan optimistically will go for a VFR day on Monday. For both those passes, Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal, rainy, marginal, windy, marginal VFR. Same forecast for Isabel, marginal VFR. Mintesta, marginal VFR, but VFR out the north side there. And for Tanita, occasionally marginal, mostly marginal for Portage, Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here about 6,000 to 8,000 feet here. Over interior Alaska, 2,000 to 4,000 feet along the Arctic coast, 6,000 feet working into the southwest interior, and warmer conditions here, 10,000 to 12,000 feet over the Aleutians, right up into Kodiak Island, and about 8,000 to 10,000 feet over the southeast coast. And taking a look at the icing graphic here, icing a pretty good band of considerable moderate rime icing mostly here, Norton Sound up toward Kotzebue, eastward across the Yukon River there, and then down over the southeast interior areas, mostly below about 20,000 feet or so. And the jet stream here got another upper level low tracking eastward here a little farther to the south than the other one did, that's now up there over the Mackenzie River Delta. For tomorrow at jet stream level here, we've got 90 to 110 knot winds across the eastern Aleutians, 115 knots into the Gulf of Alaska, then 75 knots blowing into the Panhandle. 9,000 feet here, low pressure tracking at this elevation into the northern Kuskokwim Valley. North winds behind that, 40 knots across the eastern Bering Sea, southwest coast, increased to about 50 to 55 knots as they blow across the Alaska Peninsula just south of Kodiak Island. And at 3,000 feet, same pattern, low pressure here, Kuskokwim Valley. North winds 35 knots through the Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula. Increase as you head south and they turn northwest, 50 knots right across the Alaska Peninsula. And then some easterlies at about 35 knots, a weak band there, or a small band of 35 knot east winds along the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound. And for the turbulence, with those strong gusty winds, looking at considerable moderate turbulence here, southwest coast, all of Bristol Bay, the Aleutian Range, Alaska Peninsula area.